We are back. We had a special last night looking back over the last 30 years at Ron Paul fighting tyranny. Great job for the crew putting that together, but we are back. It is Tuesday, the 27th day of December 2011. Coming up later in the week, we'll look at the top 10 stories from our perspective of 2011 and our predictions and trends that we see unfolding in 2012. Coming up later in the evening, we're going to have Patrick Henningsen, INFOWARS reporter, joining us from London, and another INFOWARS reporter, Jason Bermas, joining us from New York as we look at Iran, the unfolding police state, the latest on MF Global, and a lot more. That is all coming up. And I want to give you a bit of a prelude to a special report we're going to put out probably Thursday on the syndicated radio show, and then post it as a video report to Infowars.com, dealing with more population reduction documents. And that's this stack right here. Today I shot about 30 minutes for the report that I want to cut down to about 10. That's the problem, is showing you all the proof. There's so much of it, it's ridiculous. And the reason I'm going to cover this is there's an article in CBS News titled "Ron Paul Disavows Racist Newsletters Under His Name." And literally more than 200 of these last week that I was in the middle of. And they used this talking point in the article saying that Ron Paul goes on Alex Jones's show where they believe the military is going to take over America, which is openly being announced, and that the government is adding chemicals to the water to encourage homosexuality. Listen, I've got the UN Planned Parenthood document right here sourced. Okay, this is on record, Library of Congress. So I'm going to read this to you, CBS News. I don't care whether you like it or not. People have a right to choose their gender. This is an attack on the species itself. And look at how it's always these Nazis running political correctness. Because they say, oh my God, all over the news, Alex Jones says they're adding chemicals to the water and to the printer ink and everything else to reduce fertility and do this to people. And then they spin it and say it has something to do with gay or straight. This has to deal with infertility. And the byproduct is the men are so confused hormonally that they're not even attracted to women. And this is epidemic. And then they turn an assault like this into, oh, don't be homophobic. Just take the chemicals and join us. Okay, so it's amazing information, and I'm going to be breaking that down coming up. And if you guys are looking for the article, it's Ron Paul Disavows Racist Newsletters Under His Name. That is the name of the article that we're going to be going over on that front. This is the mind control we face. The government, in concert with major corporations, is adding chemicals to the water, to the food, and to the containers that food is in, that in hundreds of studies, including government studies, is massively increasing cancer. My footnote is that it confuses sexuality in men, hyper-feminizes women. And then the media spins it like it's an attack. I know there are some people who are naturally attracted to the same sex. That isn't my issue here on this broadcast. The point is, this is a sterilization process. And it's wrong. People should decide if they're going to have children. People should be naturally what they are. And this is an attempt to make people something they aren't for population reduction. I'm going to go over the proof coming up. Now, let's get into the main body of the news before I get back into that in detail here. Obama to ask for debt limit hike, Treasury official. Remember, the last debt increase is going to be the last. And we're going into the debt to the mega banks that own the private Federal Reserve that we bailed out to the tune in 1 year of 16+ trillion, a total in the last 4 years, 27 trillion, and we haven't gotten new numbers in a while. So we give them trillions, and then they come in and loan it back to the American people, and we go into debt to them. The government, of course, loans them the money at zero or lower than zero. They loan it back to us at massive interest. And so now the debt ceiling that was 14 trillion went to 15.194 trillion. Now it's going to 16.394 trillion. So now it is jumping back up yet again in everybody's face. And this is all part of these money changers, these Ponzi scheme operators that literally create all this out of nothing, but then we've got to pay taxes on our real labor to them, giving their Ponzi fraud value. You get how that little magician trick works. So there is that report on that front. Now, here's another big fat, see, I told you so. And it doesn't matter whether it's Obama in office, it doesn't matter whether it's George Bush in office, Mitt Romney, anybody but Ron Paul, it's the same deal because they're all bought and paid for by the same interest. Here's another big fat, I told you so. Because almost 10 years ago, I watched C-SPAN and I saw Homeland Security say, you're going to have government approval to have a job, to live, to drive, to walk down the street. If you haven't paid all the taxes, we say, we're going to order your employers to fire you. I mean, this is like in the ghettos in Germany where they said you can't operate a business now, you got to wear a yellow star. This is exactly what tyrannies engage in. Here's the LA Times. TSA screenings aren't just for airports anymore. And it says bus stations, malls. Well, they're already running ads where they show the TSA at malls and at football games. We're coming to grab your daughter's genitals, to look in your baby's diaper, to confiscate your cupcakes. That's now happening. To train you that you're a prisoner and you're bad. And notice they say, critics say it's largely political theater. No, critics say it's conditioning to train us to be prisoners, dog training, and it's training us we're guilty until proven slaves, not guilty until proven innocent. Of course, it should be innocent until proven guilty. But now it's just you're guilty, only Homeland Security can be trusted. The same folks caught shipping drugs into the U.S., guns out of the U.S. on record. The same crooks with big mega banks laundering hundreds of billions of drug money every year, getting caught, nobody gets in trouble, like Corzine taking all that money and not getting in trouble. I mean, it's just open a bunch of thugs out of control. And they don't care that we know. I guess they do kind of care. They're moving to start shutting down the free internet as we know it and admitting it. So there's that here. No, people are mad because it's groping. That's why I saw numbers of $40 billion a year now lost in tourism of the U.S. alone. People won't come here. Communist China, which is a police state, doesn't do this to go down the road or to go to a shopping mall or to go to an airplane. Okay? So it's amazing. And so they're going to be everywhere. And they just got their funding tripled to do this, so look out. There's that article. And look, I could show you us 9.5 years ago in films I made and articles warning you about this, but here we are from December 7th of last year, more than a year ago. Americans outraged as Big Sis launches DHS invasion of society. And in the article, we talk about highway checkpoints, telescreens in Walmarts and other locations, saying only trust government, government PSAs, and how they're going to be involved in every aspect of your life doing this. They were already doing test cases of this, where you pull up and the feds are running local police, and they go, we're going to grope your family, just randomly. Again, you're all guilty. How about the government gets groped? I bet if you actually went and checked what they're doing, you'd find all sorts of horrible stuff, because these are a pack of criminals with a bunch of veterans who've been overseas setting up police state systems in other countries, now coming back and filling the ranks. And again, most veterans come back awake. They do psychological testing and find the ones that like checkpoints and groping people and doing all this, and they set them up to wage war against the American people. Speaking of China and speaking of police states, China has jailed another dissident, Chen Zhai, for 10 years, if I'm pronouncing that right. And they said because he wrote some blogs criticizing the government. They said that he had criticized the government, and that undermines them, and so he can be arrested and basically disappear into a black hole. And now our criminal government has put this on paper and says it's the law with the NDAA. So all over the world, governments are saying, hey, you're inciting subversion through online essays. You're saying the government's illegitimate. You disappear into a black hole. But at least here he had a judge and a trial. Under the NDAA, you don't even get that. So continuing here, here's AP. The so-called U.S. military is pulled out of Iraq. They've kept over 100,000 contractors there, got giant embassy bases. They run the military. They already want to break the country in 3 parts, as they always plan to do. And Al-Qaeda, the same real Al-Qaeda groups they're using to attack Iran, their neighbor, who's Shiite. Our media then, so-called media, says Iran is Al-Qaeda when the Shiites are the opposite of the Wahhabists. Okay, I mean, the rest of the world laughs at us, but they think our public is so dumb. Hey, one brown guy's different, from another brown guy, I don't think so. I mean, that's basically how the world sees this. Is that we're just totally mindless and absolutely dumbed down. But here, the average American just says, hey, you know what? That must be a SWAT team officer. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought terrorists wore masks. There's an evil al-Qaeda terrorist. He's going to try to get us. We've got to give all our rights up. And meanwhile, it's admitted that al-Qaeda works for the criminal banks, and they've given them control of Libya. Now they're invading Syria with them. They've given them control of so many other countries like Egypt. Al-Qaeda is a tool of the New World Order, period. And here's the Associated Press. An al-Qaeda front group in Iraq has claimed responsibility for a wave of attacks that ripped through markets, cafes, and government buildings in Baghdad on a single day last week, killing 69 people and raising new worries about the country's path since the U.S. left. So that sells the idea that, oh, without the West, what are you going to do? You need to keep the contractors in the U.S. there because al-Qaeda struck. The very same al-Qaeda group on record being funded by the West to attack Iran. That's how dumb the system thinks we are. Continuing here, and this will segue us into the big report that we're about to get to, dealing with chemicals being added to the water, the food, and into the containers that our food and water is held in. Here's an article out of the Huffington Post, but that isn't the issue. You go to the first link, and it's the International Journal of Bioethical Sciences, analyzing the effects of genetically modified foods on mammalian health. That's all mammals. We're mammals. Researchers found that the agricultural giant Monsanto GM corn is linked to organ damage in rats. Now, these studies don't just show that. They've had these for decades. It also shows massive infertility. Within 3 generations, with the average GMO crop, in rats, guinea pigs, you name it, they cannot have offspring, and they have all sorts of weird deformities. According to a study which summarized by Randy Ananda at Food Freedom, 3 varieties of Monsanto GM corn, MON 863, insecticide-producing MON 810, and Roundup herbicide-absorbing NK 603 were approved for consumption by U.S., European, and several other nations' food safety authorities. But it goes on to break down kidney and liver function, other organs, spleen, blood cells were also found to be damaged, and that it caused all sorts of other problems in the sexual organs, you name it. So, and by the way, it's not just Monsanto; it's every company as you go down the line, because they don't just have the traits that you're told about to last longer, taste better, take less water. They Trojan horse the traits in there for fertility destruction and cancer, and that's in all the studies. So here's just another one. Right there. We're going to get more into this, why this is happening in a moment. But I thought I'd show you this. Now, remember, all of these different industries, fertilizer production, aluminum smelting, uranium purification, they've got